Testing. We are live. So, everyone, welcome to the OreAni Winter 2018 preview show, where we will be discussing the new shows of the season. And with us today, we have Nick.
Yep.
Sean.
Yellow.
Tank.
Yampasu.
And returning, Tyler.
Hello, everyone.
Great. So, first show that we have up for discussion is Sanrio Danshi, or Sanrio Boys. So, I heard some interesting things about this. So, Sean, why don't you take it away?
Boy, I don't even know where to start with this. It is not what you think it is. It's not Sanrio characters imagined as pretty boys who form an idol boy band or anything like that. That's what you think it would be, but that's not what it is. So to sort of preface why Sanrio Danshi is the way it is and why it is like the weirdest show on TV. Sanrio is a mascot company. They have like Hello Kitty. They have, I don't know, Kerofi. I'm not well versed in Sanrio characters, but basically they make stationery and other merchandise for children. So in a country with a drastically declining birth rate and where more and more of the population is becoming older, less and less of it is young, that Sanrio needs to adapt to those market conditions. And it seems like they're starting to target older otaku. And they did that with what's that show? Show by Rock. So that's more of like that's a thing that appeals to otaku in a conventional way. And then Sanrio Danshi tries to make the case that liking conventional Sanrio characters late into your adulthood, and even if you're a man, it's okay to like Hello Kitty. And the way it does that... Sorry, there's some sort of echo that's tripping me up. But the way they do that, the way they make that case is they tackle expectations of adulthood and they tackle toxic masculinity as barriers to adopting these mascots. And for example, the first story is about a boy who just lost his grandma, and her parting memento, was this pom pom pudding stuffed toy. So that's the Sanrio mascot. And then when he received that toy, he was at that age where he doesn't want to be seen as a child anymore, and he's starting to conform to expectations of masculinity. So he kind of rejected it, and he got into a fight with grandma, and that was like the last conversation they had until she died. And then in the middle of episode 2, he's yelling in a rain-soaked street how his toxic masculinity took everything he loved from him, and it is totally nuts. As a way to rebrand and make the case for Sanrio characters to adults, this is a very strange and outlandish way to do that. And it's also it's interesting in that way. It's such a weird show that I'm struggling to frame it in a way that makes any sense.
Who do you think the target demographic is for this show?
So here's a weird thing. I don't goddamn know who it's for. I mean, from that externally, it looks like it's for women, but it's also making this case for men. So I don't know what it is. Is it? I don't know who it speaks to. I mean, potentially it could speak to anyone. But, when you have a show called Sanrio Danshi, it's not going to be watched by very many men. You know, it has more of a Fujoshi-ish title, but then it tackles these like male conformity issues in this like pretty intense and head-on way. So man, it is a weird show. Like by episode 2, I knew I was on board, and episode 3 is even weirder than episode 2 because it's about a brother and a sister, and the little sister always looked up to the brother because he was so cool and all that. But then, as their parents sort of became absent from their daily lives, like the brother had to pick up the slack. And now, like, he does a lot of domestic chores. He wears this, like, My Melody apron that's pink and really girlish. And he cooks dinner every night. And then the sister becomes more and more disgusted with him. It's like, you're disgusting. Like, you used to be cool. So this is like, you know, this is a story about a guy who is being attacked by these like masculine concepts from the outside. Like those are being imposed on him. He's being told that he's no longer cool because he's really into My Melody, and he does all this. He cooks dinner every night and does that kind of stuff. Like he doesn't conform to the image of a cool guy. So that's a really interesting episode too. And then the next episode, episode 4, which I don't think is aired yet, that's going to be about this like soccer player that likes Hello Kitty. And the prologue to that is he's like accosted by this group of other soccer players, maybe his teammates or something. And they're like, we need to talk. And they look really mad and angry and stuff. So I want to see where that goes. They need to talk about its Hello Kitty problem. So
the show format is actually an anthology?
It's episodic so far. Like episodes 1 and 2 is an arc, and episode 3 is an episode. It's an arc. Episode 4 seems like it's going to cover another character.
But they haven't crossed paths.
They sort of have. Like they formed a sort of circle of friends of like boys at school who are also like into Sanrio characters for some reason. But and I don't know, it's not like they form a boy band or anything like that. Like the kind of things that you would expect this type of show to do, it doesn't do that yet.
Okay. But it sounds quite off the beaten track. So
yeah,
we'll
it's really,
see how it does.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like a thing like this, you would expect to be completely uncontroversial. It would have no message whatsoever, but it's really putting itself out there. So it just makes me wonder, like, who came up with this idea?
So is it a comedy?
No, it's a drama.
Okay.
Like, was this Sanrio? Did someone at Sanrio come up with this weird way to like rebrand Sanrio for like male adults? Or it was, I don't know. This is the most mysterious show on television.
And no one's really covering it, right?
Covering?
I mean, like, you know, a lot of the mainstream sites, I don't see any mention of this.
I think it's on Crunchyroll, isn't it?
Yeah, it's being streamed on Crunchyroll under the title Sanrio Boys. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to like anime criticism, so I actually don't know like whether this is being talked about or not. Nobody I know is talking about it.
I can't say I've seen it in like the community either.
Yeah. So it looks like it is pushed by Sanrio. It's multimedia franchise. It has its own manga. It has drama CDs. It has a smartphone game for iOS and Android. And this is the anime. So this has been going on since 2015, it looks like. Yeah, there's a Wikipedia page. So, and it shows the picture with the guy with the melody, and then the Hello Kitty guy, and the Cinnarol, and the other one. Anyway, there's some background there, and yeah, not a whole lot on my anime list. But all right.
Yeah, it seems like each of these episodes are going to be the like story of some dude who likes Sanrio mascots, but has to like confront toxic masculinity in order to accept that he likes them. So it's really it's crazy.
Okay. Well, thanks for that preview. And then I think we'll move on to the next title because we do have a lot to cover. Next title is OreAni's newest, Violet Evergarden. And we've got myself and Nick and Sean watching this. So would either of you like to take it away?
I wouldn't in particular because I know Sean totally looked into an interview that I didn't. So
I don't know. There's not too much to learn about the interview aside from like animation techniques and like concepts of how to visually show the emotions of the characters through lighting and through character design. You know, it's all that technical stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, Violet Evergarden was a show that kind of took me somewhat by surprise, just because, number one, the visual appeal of it was quite different than a lot of the anime norm of late. But aside from that, in story first, we pretty much are following Violet. The main protagonist's name is Violet Evergarden, who was employed in the military and pretty much, got drafted in at a young age, and the military is pretty much all she knew. She comes from a world of strictly following orders and just military morals that she never really had a chance to be normal. Like, she doesn't really understand empathy or emotion. She's very mechanic in that approach. And as the war was ending, she actually sustained an injury, causing her to lose both of her arms, being replaced with Full Metal Alchemist, what was that stuff called? Full Mail or something like that? I forget, but so we are quickly introduced to a character who seeks out her lifestyle as she knew it. The war is now over, but she is still incessant on following the one, commander figure that she only ever had. And a friend of the commander's, whose fate is pretty much known to the viewers, but not Violet, he takes it upon himself to try to reintroduce her into society. And this is kind of that story. And apparently in this anime world, the concept of the typewriter, I think, just came about. I don't think it's brand new, but it's a relatively new thing. And there was a profession that was made from the typewriter's existence, and that's something that was known as what was that, ghost? Is it Ghost Rider or no, the doll service, right?
Yeah, auto memory doll.
Auto memory doll. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember the exact name. Thank you. And the concept here is that people will go to these auto memoir dolls and literally name a person and an address and just kind of say I want to send a message to this person, and I want the message to basically contain this subject, it's going to be about this, but I want it to spin it with this kind of an emotion, just to describe the feelings and the content that they wish to reach the person, and it's the job of the auto memoir dolls to make a fitting letter and send it off. And this is pretty much the story of Violet Evergarden's pursuit of finding emotion, if you would say, because her whole goal to be this auto memoir doll is, number one, namely, it's a job that she figures she can kind of do. Her hands, she's still kind of getting used to them, but when she sets them up in a certain way, she could really type really quickly on a typewriter. But coming from that military-minded background, she can't really quite grasp concepts of, as I said, empathy and emotion. She makes very straightforward, blunt conversations and letters, and we kind of see her kind of like struggling to find a place in the current world. I didn't know if there's one more thing I want to say, but I could hold it off till later if anyone else wanted to mention something I haven't.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting concept, an interesting premise to base it around.
Hold on. We've got a lot of feedback from Tyler. You're on twice.
Yeah. Let me go off here. There we go. Sorry about that.
But yeah, it's a pretty interesting concept or it's an interesting premise to base it around typewriting as a way to develop your emotional side, because it's interesting because we take typing for granted now. Like, everyone knows how to type, but at some point in the past, like, typing was a very specialized skill, and so was literacy, and so was even writing in general. So a lot of people need that service to have someone write a letter for them because they can't do it themselves. So that's a pretty interesting concept, that like ghostwriting is a common service that you would want. Like, you're not going to write your own formal letter or anything. Like, you need a specialist to do that. So, and it's interesting that her upbringing is just based on the military. Like, she was some sort of orphan or something that was like presented to the brother of a prince or something like that. Like, the backstory is pretty fuzzy. Like, they haven't really gone into it. They've only shown you glimpses of it. But it's basically this girl who grew up in military culture in wartime. So, when you're in the military, everything is like very literal. Everything is sort of conveyed with the utmost clarity and lack of ambiguity. So when you are dictating, or when you are writing a letter on someone else's behalf, like that forces Violet to learn like how to interpret other people's emotions and desires, and then like convey that into a letter. So it's a pretty, I don't know, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm getting tangled up now, but it's
All
a really
right.
good show.
I just look at it and I wonder what the external layer that they're kind of operating on with both literacy, typewriting, ghostwriting, and how that pertains to her. Because it seems like they're building it up, because the second episode, they had a character who very much identified with the craft itself that she works with. And in the second episode, they had you kind of catching up with a fellow student and what she was trying to grasp for, and which seemed like the connection with her brother, who came back broken from the war, was much more important than anything else in that. I'm always of the opinion that supporting characters are meant to actually support a main character and say things that they can't normally say, so that it kind of rounds out the entire process. It took me until the third episode to actually catch up to the show, because I was puzzled over, it's like, what is my attraction to this above and beyond just, this is Kyoto Animation's latest joint. What's attracting me? What's grabbing me? And the characterization seemed like, like you said, Sean, there's this deliberate distance that they're putting in there with, the brother of the prince and all of that going on there. So it took a little while for this thing to click, and I'm still wondering exactly what they're trying to say with this. I mean, Violet is an alien character when you get right down to it. She does not fit. And she doesn't seem to care if she does. She just wants to pursue that one line of thought that was left to her.
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup for that character, because without that, like the major that sort of took care of her, like the major that we're very quickly were made to understand that he's probably dead. Though I'm not ruling out some like surprise appearance at the end of this here.
No, pretty much Hajin says at the end of episode 2 to the one girl that he's not coming back. And it's like,
Yeah,
he's using past tense.
yeah, I remember that. But it's animated. Anything can happen. It could be like a Darth Vader situation where it's like, well, where Ben Kenobi says Darth Vader is dead, or Anakin Skywalker is dead. Your father's dead, but nope, actually he's Darth Vader. He became evil. I don't know.
Tank always likes to say there will be an eye patch involved.
But in any case, his parting words were, "I love you, and you need to live free," or something, and that just like completely confounded her. And that's the only thing that's kind of keeping her going, is to discover the meaning of those words. So it's a really good setup. Otherwise, she was saying that like I'm basically a killing machine, and now that the war is over, I'm useless. Like, please get rid of me. And then
so the world setting is still being revealed, and I don't really understand her, what exactly she is, because at first it wasn't. It's like there's a whole nother level beyond just the social class of the nobility and the commoners, right? To be something else that says, oh, she's just a weapon of war, don't treat her as a human being. And that seems that part hasn't really been explained. So and a little girl at that should be a weapon of war. Why? So is she something special beyond that? I mean, she clearly has massive combat skills, right? But
yeah, she was like charging the front line like Wonder Woman in like that little action flashback we saw.
She ripped off her own hands, right, and all that. So
that's outsider at the very beginning, and it also asks, if we send young people off to war, what good are they when they come back?
Yeah, good point.
So instead of answering the question, it's asking it.
Yeah, my hesitation is that the source material. I don't know the source material that well, but it's one of the award winners within what Kyoto Animation sponsored, right, Sean?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but it was
outside Japan, we never really have much access to that source material, do we?
No, and then in the past, when they've adapted things that they've actually sponsored to bring about, like Chunibyo Demo Koi Shitai, right? Love Life. What the hell is the English title? Love something in Chunibyo. Anyway,
Love
it ends up being,
visions.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit.
I think I vaguely remember the title of that thing. Like, despite my delusions, I still want to have like a romance too or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But my point being, I don't know how well the source material will actually explain or stand up to actual scrutiny. But at least KyoAni is known for, adapting things very well. So, like for Chunibyo, they added, original characters, original plot points. They actually improved upon the source material when the source material is a light novel. I'm just curious about what this Violet Evergarden source material, how much of it is actually literally, good.
A friend of mine has read the first novel for Hibike Euphonium, and he says they pretty much follow it structure to structure. So that was a very acclaimed novel outside their sources, from what I understand. But I've read at least a fairly good translation of the Chutu Koi stuff, and it's wow. It's embarrassingly bad. But you could see the core idea going through there and what they were trying to talk about. And it's like, wow, this is a great idea. We're going to take it and make it better. Thanks.
Yep. So I guess in the end, we'll just have to follow it, and for its 12 or maybe it's 13 episodes.
It's 14
season.
It's 14.
It's 14,
at least according to MAL.
Deluxe.
Okay.
But
I don't
one,
see how they're airing that this season. There might be like a couple of bonus episodes or something.
The 14th episode OVA. It's a crossover with Maid
they
Dragon.
normally don't slip those into like the initial episode counts, like when the show's like in its third or so.
Right.
But there's just like one more thing I wanted to say about it, and it's while I do like the show, there is like this one issue that I overall have with it, and it's like in this new age of in this new service of the auto memoir doll, like we don't know if it just became a thing like a year or two ago, or like how long actually the typewriter has been around in this job. But like a part of me just can't believe that, like when you have new talent who's obviously slipping up, right? Like we see the occasional scene where a lot of the people wanting a letter writ seek out the people of reputable review. It's kind of like going to ask for that one like masseuse guy or what, like going to an establishment asking for the one like tattoo artist who is the best or whatever. You got a lot of that going on, but like when it comes to this ghostwriting service, we see a lot of the new talent kind of fumbling and then getting in trouble because they didn't write a good enough letter. And I just kind of wonder why, like, the concept of proofreading hasn't really come about. Like, why not just let the person read the letter real quick? Yeah, this is totally what I want to send, and then send it off. I know you're gonna like lose a lot of scenes that way, but I just can't believe that people are like, yeah, just write this letter, ship it off, and oh, wait, now I read it after the other person reacted, and this is unacceptable.
This is the story of how you get proofreaders and editors.
Like, I'm just surprised no one really went like, hey, can I read this first? Like after you've been burned by it once, or like if you read about someone who, or like if word of mouth is like this person wrote a horrible letter, like why not just ask to read it before it gets sent off? And then
I ain't gonna let you write no squirrely letter to me this time like they did over in Harperstown. Come on, proofread that thing before you send it off in the U.S. mail. Or I'm going to get ornery.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure everyone is able to read and write, for one. Like clearly, like the first person that you see using the service was some sort of low wage manual laborer, and I don't think he would have been able to read, right? So there's that, but yeah, I don't know.
There are a lot of social theories that trace back why we have a literate society right now is because in England and America, there was a conglomeration that wanted to turn wood pulp into paper. And so therefore, what's the best way to sell more paper is you sell more reading material. Is it cheaper by and large to be able to have an educated populace to be able to do that and then maybe able to sell them, penny dreadfuls or all the things they sold back in the day, broadsheets, newspapers, and all that. So, I mean, we're looking at probably the beginnings of literacy or what is now known as universal literacy for the society, which is interesting because literacy changes how you perceive the world.
True.
Maybe the show has some like this kind of like nesting doll thematic structure to it.
The show does give me some things to think about like that, but I actually try not to expect too much from the world building of Violet Evergarden. I think it's very much concerned with its characters and their emotional arcs and little episodes. Like
I don't think. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like there is a steampunk aspect to it, but it's extremely subdued. Which is like basically just comes down to Violet's weird steampunk arms.
I think you're going to get more of like a thematic world building and character world building, her interior world than you are anything else about why the war was fought or wars get fought. Let's move on from that. Why was she in the war? Young people go to war. Da 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 da. That's all those things are already answered for it. And they're more interested in the aftermath. It looks like because the show starts after the war, so you can kind of make your assumptions in the stories. From how it goes from that way.
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be the development of Violet
and the return of the Major
with iPad.
Darth Violet.
All right.
Awesome.
Something that this show reminds me of is I hate to bring this up, but this is like the bad episodes of Princess Principal, but done good. It's like Violet Evergarden does a good job at what Princess Principal was bad at.
I loved Princess Principal. I thought it was absolutely wonderful at being the schlock that it wanted to be.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Please
think
shoot
it was like,
deep.
but Princess Principal also tried to have these like emotional backstory arcs with family drama and all that, and all those tended to fall flat. Like it was better at the like maximum schlock like action fest.
I think that might be it might be because of what it's based on. It's based on a mobile game. And so therefore all the characters they present have to have something of a story to kind of imagine what the mobile game is doing. Violet Evergarden doesn't suffer from that, at least not yet. But yeah, Princess Principal was they had to put all the characterizations all over the place, and it suffered as a result.
All right, let's move on to our next titles, unless someone has anything else to say. Next title that we'll be discussing is another Netflix show. And this one is actual Netflix original, Devilman Crybaby. So looks like most of us have watched it in one form or another. Has everyone finished watching the entire thing?
I've not even begun to watch it yet, so I don't mind getting spoiled on things. So if you want to talk about it, go right ahead.
I tried checking it out. I don't know if I just feel that I don't typically enjoy a lot of that director stuff or not, but I figure I might sit this one out just because it didn't grab me initially, and I read a lot of the review about it, so like I understand a lot about what it is. I just don't know if it's going to catch on with me because it's not like what I look for in shows. But
did you see the first episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were on anime Twitter. There were several people and friends and associates I know that were otaku orgasming over it in a way that I went, "Oh yeah, that's probably not for me."
Yeah, right. It's like I understand a lot of what it's about, and it's just like not necessarily a story I want. So.
I would say that if you haven't seen the first episode, at least watch that. Like that's a pretty good primer for what the show is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to discuss it just a bit is, this is based on Go Nagai's classic manga from the I think he started writing it in the
like
late
70s?
No, it's like in the 70s. So it's pretty early on, right? It's very early. He's one of those giants in the manga and anime field. He is the creator of Devilman. He's the creator of Getter Robo. He's the creator of Mazinger Z, right? All of these iconic brands. So the thing is, back in the 70s, there was, I think there was certainly a different mentality about where the world was going in many cases. This is the height of, the Cold War. And that is reflected in the manga. Now, the manga had, concurrent with the manga, there was a TV series, which was much more, Power Ranger-esque. So, but then in the 90s, they attempted to have like a reboot with a couple of OVAs, closely followed the 5-volume manga. And that did not go to completion. They released 2 OVAs and the project died. Okay, and so in a sense, this is an adaptation, but it's also a reimagining and trying to bring it into the modern era, without losing some of the themes that Go Nagai was going for back in those days. So it's a bizarre, I won't say bizarre, but it is a mix of Go Nagai's ideas and also, the director's, which is Masaaki Yuasa's, his vision, right? So it is a reimagining, and I think they made a lot of interesting choices. I don't know if it actually always succeeds. On my first view through, since it is a Netflix show released in the US, all 10 episodes have been released. I was a little curious about the episode count. I was a little, after watching it, I'm like, I'm not sure, the episode count actually works in some cases, or maybe it's portions of the arc that I don't think adapted well. But
yeah, I definitely thought it was too short.
there's a lot more to develop. But the interesting thing from the get-go that I noticed was in the first episode, right, you're introduced to the main characters and their kind of motivations. It made there are changes from the original manga. And one of the things is, like, in the manga, the first volume of the manga, of this 5-part volume, essentially is the first episode of the anime, and so there's a lot more meat in terms of what Ryo is discovering, how he convinces Akira to participate, right? In this version, it's like Akira just tags along with his buddy to this Black Sabbath type disco, drug-fueled, crazy show. And in the original, there was a lot more convincing. Akira has actually shown the visions of this previous world where the demons, ruled the earth. All of that, and it convinces him that he has to do this to try to protect the people that he cares about, right? And so all of that was skipped over. I'm like, wow, that makes Akira seem like a pretty idiot for just following his buddy into, a very sketchy situation. So there are odd choices like that. And later on, a lot of the political aspects that the manga covered are kind of glossed over or changed. And I can see why they changed some of it, and the others I don't agree with. So even though I enjoyed it tremendously, I'm not ready to call it like a masterpiece like some people are calling it. I don't think it is, but it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I haven't read the manga, and actually I knew so little about where the manga goes that I was actually genuinely shocked to see how far that story went and like where it ended up. Like I was not anticipating any of that stuff. So that was actually a real treat for me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so like I mentioned, this is, back in the 70s, right? And there are other anime, not necessarily anime, but manga titles that revolved around this kind of a similar theme about humanity and whether humanity is worth saving or not. And several of them, including one by, it's a title called Mars, which was written by Mitsuteru Yokoyama, right? And in that one also, things do not go well for Earth, let's just say.
Yeah, didn't that also almost indirectly inspire Gundam or Battle Angel Alita?
It inspired like God Mars, which is a slightly different property. But yeah, that's where the name came from. But in that story, basically, they find a strange kid on a volcanic island, and he has no memories. And it's soon revealed that he's actually not human. He is supposed to be observing and recording and making a decision about basically of humanity and whether they should be destroyed or not, because they could become a danger to the galaxy, right? And so because he doesn't have his programming correct, he sides with humanity, but in the end, humanity kind of betrays him, and his decision does not go well for Earth. Okay, so there are other themes along that line during the 70s, because it's the height of the Cold War, and the doomsday clock is 2 minutes from midnight or 3 minutes from midnight, and things are not looking good. So there's certain that view of humanity, and I wasn't sure if this would actually, if Devilman Crybaby, some of the themes about that would carry through or not. And that's where it gets a little bit muddled for me. But yeah, if you get a chance, watch the first episode. Be aware that there are a couple of extreme graphic violence and sex, and yeah, not in a very pretty way. So it is grotesque and at times horrifying. And
but it is very stylized. like it's not grotesque and ultra violent in the way that like anime from the 80s and 90s are grotesque and ultra violent, because in that era they were very concerned with like maximum detail realism, right? Where Crybaby is, it's expressionistic. You know, Yuasa is not a detail oriented director or animator, so his visuals are very, well, they're expressionistic. You know, they're rather abstract in the way that they convey violence, and there's something like very humorous to it too, just how over the top it is and how absurd visually like their depictions of sex and violence and all that stuff are. You know, it's very different from what you would have seen in the 90s. Like I have seen some of those old Devilman things from the 80s and or from the 90s, I think, like the OVA stuff.
Yeah,
they're not that good.
Very much in the line of the old Berserk show too. It's like, look what we can show, look what we can do, look at all the gore.
Yeah, so I read an interview with the director Yuasa, and he was saying that the way he approached the violence and of Devilman Crybaby is that he imagined what Go Nagai would have done if he didn't have to publish this thing in a shonen manga, because even though it's like really extreme, he was still constrained by the fact that it was in a shonen like magazine. So,
yeah.
like, what if he didn't have those constraints? What would he do?
If he didn't have to appeal to edgelords anymore.
Yeah, it's I think I read that same interview too, and yeah, it's interesting. So I think, you know, he did a great job of reimagining, and I like a lot of the new aspects that he put in, like the new characters and changing some of the, you know, the prototypical high school punks into more of modern rappers. You know, those are changes that he made. And I think for the most part it works, but I'm just not sure overall structure-wise. Some of the important messages might have gotten muddled. So,
yeah, as someone who doesn't know anything about the source material, I definitely felt the compression sometimes. Like that 10 episode show is 3 episodes short, and the pacing is fun. Like there are only a few moments where the show loses me, where you really start feeling the compression. It's like, this should have been a full episode. Instead, they're trying to like just bang out all these plot points in like 4 scenes or something. So
Yeah.
it does have those moments, but otherwise the show does move at a pretty brisk and enjoyable pace. So
it's quite the opposite of some of the. Go ahead.
It doesn't break the show, but yeah, like I'm hesitant to call it a masterpiece, but it is pretty good. Like I would recommend it.
Same here, definitely. I was just making a comment that it's opposite of what people talk about the Marvel shows. You know, the Marvel Netflix shows. It's just too long. So. All right. So let us move on to our next title, which is. Yes, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce the double X. Yeah, it's Darling in the Franxx.
Dr.
This is the new Trigger show, but
And
it's
A1
Trigger with A1 Pictures. So it is an interesting mix, and certainly we do see that. So let's see.
Yeah, and for once, it's not an Imaishi show, you know, so it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the sort of like over the top shonenness of Gurren Lagann or Kill la Kill or that sort of thing. It has a different vibe. It has like a pre Imaishi Gainax vibe to it, kind of like Die Buster.
It's so like by the second episode, it was so in the face with all of that. It makes me wonder if there's going to be. I mean, you can't. I mean. You're supposed to make all that stuff subtext. And I know it's a mecha show where everything is text. You know, there's not a thing left for granted in that. You know, the giant robot is his penis. Okay, now it's both of them. You know, now it's penis and vagina at the same time. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, we're going back to Aquarion Evol, aren't we? I mean, it's to me, it's too obvious, too soon. So it makes me think that there's going to be some sort of subversion later on. Or am I giving Trigger too much credit?
That is, yeah, I don't.
To unpack.
I'm approaching this show like it's an Ikuhara anime, like it's a Penguin Drum, or like it's that, what was that other one that he did? Yuri Kuma Arashi.
Two of my favorite
Unfortunately-
shows. Two of my favorite shows.
Because if you just sort of take it at face value, it's completely absurd and like it barely makes any sense. So I have to sort of interpret it as like a metaphor. Like, what is the show actually trying to say? Because it's very upfront about like, look, like robot piloting equals sex. Like
Adult, a council of adults equals, my God, would you children screw and have babies, Horace, okay?
yeah, so it starts making me think of like Japan's demographic apocalypse. It starts making me think of like how children, or young people in Japan sort of find the adult world like inaccessible. And then in episode 3 of Franks, they sort of introduce the concept of like we're growing up in this authoritarian controlled environment, so we can protect this like glimmering city on the horizon that we will never be able to enter.
Yep.
And if
what is in this for us? What can we create? You can't tear it down, because if you tear it down, it comes down with us. So yeah, there are those things that are happening in there as well.
Yeah, and so we have to like enter into these like pseudo arranged marriages and get it on in the robot. And if we can't do that, we're deemed useless and we're cast out to sea. So there's something like all that is kind of Ikuharan to me.
Yep, but it's too obvious. Like I said, it's slapping you in the face way too much. That, and they juxtapose that with him going back to the I call it the fake robot with the fake butt. To me, they transition to that scene and they show that, and it's like, is messaging, where are you coming from? What are you doing? What are you trying to tell me? It's one of those things that make me think that, this is one of those instances to where globalization and being able to understand some of the ideas that are uniquely Japanese just aren't doing me any service any longer.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty blunt, but I kind of enjoy how blunt it is. Like it does make it entertaining and funny.
So it's like blunt Ikuhara.
Yeah. I mean, Ikuhara is already pretty blunt, but
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we keep throwing Ikuhara's name out, but the actual director is Atsushi Nishigori, and he's also part of the duo of writing and responsible for writing it. So just wanted to put that. Now the other writer is Naotaka Hayashi. I don't actually know that name, so yeah, certainly.
One's regular
At least
compositor.
the first 3 episodes. Go ahead, Tyler.
That name sounded like something I see on A1's writer's composition sheet an awful lot, so to speak.
Oh, okay. So he probably comes from the A1 side of things, and he actually has been writing all the semicolon stories.
Oh, jeez.
Chaos Heads, Steins Gate, Robotic Notes. Interesting.
Aren't those mostly like adaptions of like games or something? Or?
Yeah, but
they all are, I think.
Yeah, he wrote the game.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, they're solid. Those shows are. That's what I'll give them. They're solid.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that
Yeah,
going into this, but go ahead.
He only did the adaptation for Chaos Child. The others were probably written by someone else, but he was the original game writer. Right? He also did Plastic Memories before Darling in the Franxx. So
That's right. Right.
So like in the community, like not our community, but in an anime community that's part of Google Plus, it's a show that I've seen like people kind of throw around, and the discussions there about this show are kind of weird. One of the more, like one prevalent question that was asked is like, what is up with those piloting controls? And I kind of just said like, it's that like Kill la Kill transforming suit mechanic. Like, I think they use it as an implementation just to kind of like to get into people's conversations, basically, right? Like we do this bizarre thing to like almost as a promotional stunt, like just to get out there, to break out, have people talking about us, like get people into the show. Because like when it comes to like Kill la Kill, another Trigger show, like the whole transforming uniform attire wasn't, I think like super important to the series. Like if it was something less revealing, would that show have been as exposed as it was? I'm not sure, but that's, I'm not trying to make that argument here. I'm just trying to say that I think they just kind of like, I see that as a trigger element more so than like anything from A1. Like I just imagine Trigger kind of causing that thing. And I see a lot of clear like material that they took in from their Evangelion days. Like a lot of the menus that they use, and like from the controlling adults and the concept of like when you fall one of these enemies, like they usually burst into a big cloud of blue, sometimes trickling down in rain. Like there's a lot of Evangelion going on in here, Underground City, but like it's not that same type of story, because like Evangelion was always like, oh no, it's these things are coming to cause the apocalypse, and it's like while these things are like these enemies that we have to fight are thriving on the same energy that we are, it doesn't seem to be like a world apocalyptic event. Like there's some pressure there, but I was kind of asking myself that. I'm like, what is the point of this story? Where is it going? What is it trying to do? Evangelion was always like, there's a lot of themes in it, but ultimately it was, we got to defend humanity because this thing's trying to kill us. And while that is at play here, it just doesn't feel like it's implemented at the same scale. So I was asking myself, like, what are they going through? And I kind of remembered Trigger's more recent work, like Kizunaiver, and I felt a lot of that at play here. Because like Kizunaiver was that weird show where people like shared pain, but the whole point of it was they were doing it to like bring humanity together. It was like a high schooler experiment to try to bring the world together by like making a shared sense of empathy. Like you can't hurt this other person because it will hurt you too. And while that's not the point of this show,
that does kind of remind me of Instrumentality now that you bring that up.
Yeah, because when these pilots are like, they're worried about how they connect. Like, we got to sync. We've got to be of a like mind. And I've seen a lot of Kizunaiver in it because like our main protagonist was kind of like when he was young, he was kind of like the chair, like he was like almost the leader. Like he was groomed to be the not groomed to be the leader, but they saw a talent within him. I think he like gave everybody their names and they really looked up to him. But now in high school, he's kind of like the broken character in Kizunaiver. He's kind of unable to function anymore. And with these themes of like, connecting with other pilots at play and other stuff, I'm like, I wonder if they're trying to bring that into this show. Like it kind of feels like they are, but I'm not sure. Like, are they putting like this Kizunaiver connecting spin on the mech genre, or is it going to be about something else?
I think that's always been part of the mech genre. Like, even if you think of the Hollywood blockbuster version of the mech genre, which is Pacific Rim, that also has that concept of like two pilots in the cockpit and they have to like synchronize in order to pilot the thing effectively. So I think those tropes are already there. But yeah, that is an interesting connection though. There's this thread in Gynax to have those kind of stories, or Gynax then Trigger.
Yeah.
Well, that's divorced from Anno's worldview on that. I always thought that Evangelion was put together because it asked that very simple question seriously. Why do we put kids in gigantic military robots? Well, because children are watching the television show. That's why. That's the demographic that we're marketing to. And so they basically more or less, took that full circle as they possibly could. Well, okay, what kind of world do we live in if we depend upon child soldiers? We live in a crappy world if that's our only option. And so they invented a crappy world as they possibly could, as stylized and as beautiful and as alien and as evil as they possibly could, to be able to answer that particular question as full circle as they could. So if there's any hint of that left over, on Darling in the Franxx, they even use an English for the title in that way, and it's they have to know by now that's a very strange way of constructing an English phrase. So it makes me wonder what level of awareness they're trying to approach at that point, because like I said at the very beginning, it's too freaking obvious. The metaphors are just slapping you in the face in a genre which already slaps you in the face. So again, it's like, this could have been This could have been graffiti on a wall. This could have been, I mean, that's what this joke could have been. So it makes me wonder, why are they telling this, and what are they going to tell in the next arc?
And that's something I kind of remembered about the show as you were kind of saying that is these kids, like, even though they're like high schooler age, they have that overabundance of like youthful innocence still with them. Like they didn't have the high school like health class. Like I don't know how schooled these kids are, but like they're like concepts about relationships are currently foreign to them for some reason. Like everyone's like friends, and all they know is friends. They don't really get the romantic side of relationships between people. So I was kind of wondering about that and why like they left that out right from the get-go. I know they're working on bringing it out, but it was just interesting when you make a cast of high schoolers that like don't get the concept of, relationships.
Physical intimacy, kissing, all that sort of stuff right there,
Yeah, a little more, like even on the emotional side, but absolutely on the physical side too, because like we had that one episode where she did this thing. It was called a kiss. What's that?
Yes.
But
or it could be clumsy writing, who knows.
But so yeah, I was kind of wondering like why they made the cast that way, like if that's a statement of society or is it like important to the story.
I think it is because both Western culture and Japanese culture to a large extent has that celebration of youth almost to the point to where they idolize it and deify it to the point to where elder statesmen such as myself are ignored. I'm kidding. And I mean, I think Bill Maher put it the most cynically. So, we worship the babies, and we send old people off to die in a pasture. That sort of thing. And it's we kind of have this media that's now constantly paying attention to every little single fanboy temper tantrum. Didn't get your Rick and Morty special sauce? Go ahead, jump on the McDonald's counter and throw a tantrum. You're on camera. You'll be famous there for a little while. Doesn't that make your little ego swell? So it does make me wonder if they're trying to talk about that, and so there's a tremendous disconnect between what they see. Quite possibly, it could be what the writers seeing where they were 20 years ago, and how alien their youth feels to them now that they're older and they have mortgages to pay and probably children to raise and that sort of thing. And they're wondering, or no children to raise, and they're probably wondering, why don't we have children to raise? What's happening here? Their writers make sense of the world they see around them, so maybe there's an element of that as well. I love it how we love to give, all these animators and directors they have this vision. I mean, Hayao Miyazaki makes it up as he goes along. So did Hideki Anno when you get right down to it. They just had very, very strong thematic ideas that they were willing to explore, and they took us along for the ride. So this could have elements of that too.
Well, like I felt it was more like a hook, like if it's trying to appeal to any kind of a younger generation by like making like aspects that like kids would immediately recognize are lacking from the individual, only serves as like a hook to kind of pull them in. Like why are these kids this way? But like one thing that just kind of bugs me about this series, and it's more of a visual element that bugs me more than anything else. Like I don't know if it's truly important to its theme or not, is those darn Franks robot things. Like
the faces.
Well, no. The faces I like. The anime faces I like, but the one theme that I'm not quite getting at the very moment is like, I guess I think the one that the 02, like I guess nameless chick, right? Did she have a name made for her yet? I forget. I know she just goes by 02 for the most part.
Not yet.
Her,
the main.
Yeah, Asuka.
I would go with Lum.
Like her unit was kind of like special, right? Because it was the only one that so far had that like weird, like all four animalistic look to it right now, which was to me another Evangelion element, like when they went to the Berserker style. But anyway, the mechs of the other students, the facial characteristics like really take off after the main piloting female. Yeah, and like I don't know if that's just supposed to be like a visual gimmick, because like we've kind of seen this point where like when two pilots weren't compatible at the moment, we totally try to switch the male pilots up. So like we can try to have male pilots co-work with the female pilots, but would you ever be able to send another female pilot to a different robot that had like a different, like why did you do that face thing? Like why does it take so much after the main pilot? And like just why? It'd be one thing if the face generated due to the pilot, but like even when no one's in them, they have that, like when they don't have their face generated, they still have like the hair apparatus set up. And I just
Those mecha designs are really cute. I will say that.
Also, two female pilots operate the mech.
I don't like. They didn't really explain like who controls what. Like they have to be like of a same mind of what they're doing, but like a dissonance can interrupt their actions. But it doesn't really say like who's clearly in control of what.
I think the females form the heart. You know, they're kind of like the driving mech, the motive energy in that particular instance, and the guys are there to kind of like guide them.
Yeah, like because they had that weird thing of like, you know, one makes negative energy, the other makes positive energy. You need both to pilot or something, and it's dangerous to pilot alone. But the girls can pilot alone, but it's dangerous. Don't do that. And that was like another weird thing. Going back to the faces, is like whenever they like talk to each other, like the guys would always be like their face, and you know they'd talk to other guys. But whenever a girl talked, they'd chime in as the face of their robot, and it's like what is going on here?
The primary audience of this show, is it going to be male or female? Overwhelmingly, probably largely going to be male. So maybe that's how they see girls. I see you through the window of an action figure. You know, that's the most feminine approach I have right now, is through my action figure collection or something along those lines. I mean, God.
So like, yeah, I just like that's my only complaint about the series thus far is like I just don't know where it's going yet, but I'll know that by the end. So like I'm not too concerned with that right now. But it's just, unless they explain the style, it's just going to probably like always be like a thing I can say about the show, but like not a reason to stop watching it or anything.
So this thing is going to be double length, right? Like 2 cores or whatever.
It's a 2-core show.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in for the long haul, we'll see what happens. There's a lot that could, you know, go on in the meantime because of the. Obviously, it's clearly you see the, you know, lineage from Gynax to
to Trigger.
Trigger, right?
And I also see like Trigger's brand in there. You know, it's I don't expect any subtlety from this show because that's not what Trigger does.
No.
They take ideas that are so stupid and execute them with such swagger that you just can't help but enjoy them. And I think Frank's trying to follow in that.
Yeah,
It's something that just like to they like to embrace the absurdity of the entire medium when you get right down to it. I mean, you know, you could say the same thing about Marvel. There are some dumb ideas going on there, but darn it if they don't own them, make them theirs, and just throw them out there for the world to see.
Yeah, I largely feel that this is a Trigger show. Like I know A1's on board, and it more feels like they're there as like kind of like this work power. Like they're providing like a certain sense of style that they are known for, and like I'm sure like their animators are just sheerly helping out with like, because like, you know, Trigger usually likes to take shortcuts everywhere when it comes to their Kizunaiver wasn't so bad, but like Kill la Kill, like it implemented a lot of like old tricks that they would kind of use, right? And not tricks, but you know, gimmicks, if you will.
It was like limited but stylized animation in Kill la Kill. This thing looks pretty nice though. Like I don't have any complaints about it.
Yeah, but that's where I more feel A1 is coming to the table here, is like we're here to provide that backing.
Okay, going back years, the character designer for the show is the same one from Toradora and Anonatsu.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And all those shows. Those were A1 shows, correct?
I can't recall.
Yeah.
Anonatsu
Toradora was
was
Jason
A1.
Staff, and then Anohana was A1.
Mm-hmm. And Anonatsu. They share the same designer.
Yeah, and then there was also that like Mario Kata movie that also had that designer.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That was like what 2 years ago or so, maybe.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of it. It was okay.
it had some long ass name like they always do.
Yep. So I wonder if that, that character designer came along. It was like, hey, if you're going to work with me, you got to work with my the studio I always work with.
Didn't he also do Your Name, Kimi no Nawa? I thought there was something like that.
Don't think so. I don't know. I don't know if that was a character design or not.
Well, I think it's one of the most talked about shows currently, and we will have to see where it goes. But definitely worth checking out. All right, so let's move on to our next title, which is Sora yorimo toi basho. And it's translated as the English title is A Place Further Than the Universe, which I have problems with this title, but whatever. So, now, just so the viewers understand, it's Uchu is also read colloquially as Sora. So Uchu means space, right? And Sora, for when you read it that way, it can mean like the heavens, basically. So they're basically saying, where they want to go is further than space, right? The sky, it's further than the sky. But where they want to, where the girls want to go is Antarctica. Antarctica is, thousands of kilometers away from Japan. That's where the story takes place. Meanwhile, space, you go straight up, is much closer, right?
Yeah,
whatever.
It sounds like something a 15, 16-year-old girl would say.
Yeah. So, I became interested in this because, let me pull up my anime list stuff. Because this is actually a story, so it's not an adaptation or anything. It's straight,
Oh, it's original.
Yes.
Yeah, it's original. All right.
Sweet.
And
Even better.
the other reason is this is Studio Madhouse, right? So it's a kind of a drama adventure story about 4 girls who want to go to Antarctica for their own reasons, and that was the initial draw to this. Now I watched the first episode, and it was okay. It had some moments, but it was okay. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like it based on the first episode. And then the second episode happens, and antics start happening, and there are some outstanding animation moments in the second episode, and the characters solidify with the addition of the third girl, and I'm in. So, I am really enjoying this show. I look forward to it every week. Obviously there are the cute girls, although one girl apparently, although she's drawn cute, is not supposed to be cute. Because there's a comment made in one of the episodes like, what about looks? And then, there's a sad, quiet moment. So the point is, I think this is a really interesting show and could be really good. It's something worth taking a chance on because it's an original story. And the scenes depicted about Antarctica, about the icebreaker ship, about the museum that they visit, which is a Antarctic museum in Japan, those are all real ships, real places. And I think the staff has been very careful to depict those as realistically as possible. So I feel that there is a lot of passion, right, in this project, and that's why I'm enjoying it, and I would really recommend it. I don't know if what will happen at the end, but I think it is a coming of age, find the place in the world, find typical high school themes, yet it's not high school. It's about them trying to get to someplace else. So that's why I like it. Has anyone else seen it?
Me, absolutely. This is actually a show that kind of took me by surprise, and I didn't think it would. Like, I did actually recognize the credit to Madhouse in it because, like, you know, their logo is really catchy. Like when it's like streaming through the opening sequence, and I ultimately approached this show with caution because like we've known like when Madhouse did that Yosakoi thing, like that was them, right?
Yeah.
I kind of wondered. Like, okay, I get the gist of it. After episode 1, I get that when you watch the opening, all right, the opening has these like 4 girls kind of playing around in Antarctica. And I'm like, is this totally going to be one of those things where we watch all the episodes and they barely get to go there in the end? Or like, are they, you know, like at what point are they going to get going there? Was kind of a question that I had. And as I watched the first episode, I'm a little bit with Albert on that one, where at first it was the first half of the episode was a little bit kind of slow because like you're kind of showing this character who is in high school, but she doesn't feel that she's really like achieved her youth yet. Like she's like, this is my youthful year, and like what have I done with it? And by right, and by like the end of the first episode, or going towards the end, kind of near the halfway point, we're kind of introduced to this like montage-esque sequence where they're playing this one insert song that like gets me every time, and like they're going on this trip to like achieve their goal, and it kind of felt like I was watching like a low-key film, almost like not something grandiose like Koi no Katachi, but like in that vein of you know, reality-based kind of drama show. And it to me, it still kind of feels that way every once in a while. Because like Albert said, there's moments of really great animation, and I think they busted out that song to a montage at least twice now. It just keeps like feeling like I'm actually watching like a film story, like an animated film into how many episodes is this thing going to be?
I think 13.
13. So I mean, I might lose that feel at some point. Like, I'm not going to say it's going to hold it the whole entire time, but it was just it kind of gripped me. You know, it's like I've not had an original story that was this obscure that I've liked this much in a while, and I like a lot of the emotions that they had at play here, because they kind of showed like the developing friendships that it seems like this group is like and they're probably going to go on to be like tight-knit friends, but they're kind of having this tight-knit friendship develop even though they have just met like a matter of weeks to a month ago. So I'm just kind of like really liking the vibe it's putting out there too when it comes to just showing its concept of friendships and emotion. I think they put a lot of work into the story, along with a lot of other elements, like between, like Albert was saying, they're fact checking on, like bringing in real stuff, as we know, like anime likes to do, and like they're paying a lot of attention to this, which to me, like it might not be that great of a show. I can't say it's over yet, but to me, it's gonna be one of the more underrated of the seasons. I think. Like I think a lot of the anime viewer base is not gonna watch it.
Yeah,
but it's really good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
At least the initial episodes really got me, and to explain a little bit more about where I'm at right now with it, we actually kind of see like, you know, they're having this issue of high schoolers can't go to Antarctica, but we want to go, and like trying to struggle against like a lot of rules and restriction, because Antarctica is this regulated / unregulated place. Like, you know, they even, because like no one country owns Antarctica. So there's a lot going on that makes it just difficult to like go touristically view. And, you know, they're in high school, which complicates things further. And at the point where I am at in the episode, they are basically practicing, like, we're going to be exploring Antarctica. So we got to get this like Mount Everest hiking-esque skill set down before we go do this. So they're kind of like actually training for that thing. Which, you know, I don't know where it's going to go from here, but so far I'm really sold into the series and I'm really enjoying it. So like I can't say it's going to end great, but it started great and I hope it maintains that.
It's one of my favorite shows this season. I've loved it. Unlike you two, I loved it from its first frame. You know, it's never ceased to captivate me. I hesitate to say this because, you know, it is for this stuff, but it's a masterclass on how to do characters, character-driven drama. To me, plots have become big, stupid, annoying, idiotic, moronic things. It's just an excuse to make things happen, an excuse to make characters feel more human, to bring them alive, to say something about who we are. You know, a plot is go from point A to B to C to D, and once you get to E, you press the button. And then the thing happens. Yay, the thing happens because we went through those points and we did that. On occasion, you get a plot that says, okay, when you're at C, pull a lever. And then you can proceed, and then you can push the button and stuff like that. You know, it's pretty immaterial almost. So you just have to have something that you can hook these characterizations on. And it's taken one solid thing, something to which, you know, can only exist in their imagination, can exist in the real world, can exist in the experiences of people they know that are older than them, like Antarctica. And this is a direction that they're all looking, and all of them, like you said, are saying different things about that. So it's tremendous because there's not an ounce of fat on any of those characterizations. It just keeps going forward. They keep on going from wonderful moment to wonderful moment to wonderful moment, just not messing a single beat up. After every single episode, I've watched it twice because it just, and I don't watch a lot of shows twice these days anymore. It just never ceases to amaze me how well they do everything. And one thing that is worth mentioning, hang on a second, let me bring this back up again, because I'm on another thingy. 4 of the best voice actresses in the business are on that. Hana Kanazawa, Ichigo Yuki, Hayami Sari, and Binasi Hinori as the 4 main characters. I mean, they're on fire. This is the best job I've ever heard these 4 individuals do, and even together, it blows me away every single time I watch it. And it's also one of those shows that I can look at to other people and say, yeah, this is good. You should forget all that tentacled, weird, rapey shit that you might have heard of. Watch this instead. Watch it with your kids. It'll be fine. Yeah. And so that's, I mean, I was able to recommend, you know, Love Live to my grandnieces, you know, and it's because there's none of the creepy otaku vibe to it and all that. I couldn't tell my friends to watch Darling in the Franxx unless it was for a joke, you know. But this one, I can say to friends and family, watch this show. You'll be bloody amazed. It's awesome.
Yeah, like it kind of like I said, it just has a little bit of a slow start, and it's kind of interesting how their aspirations go to Antarctica kind of form, because like it's only really been a slight spoiler here, like the lifelong dream of one of the individuals in particular, but it's also interesting to watch how infectious it became to the others. And it's even compounded further by like how society kind of views their dream at large, like, when it comes down to like a lot of the parents' reactions or the other students in high school. Like I think this story was just so far well written, and like I said, I can't say where it's going, but the first at least 3 episodes were
All right, so I think that's a high recommendation for at least the 3 of us that have watched it, so it's worth checking out. All right, then we'll move on to the next title, which is Ramen Daisuki Koizumi-san, or the English title is Miss Koizumi Loves Ramen. So let's see, I've watched it, and Tyler, you've watched it too.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
It's a good show. I mean, it's one of those things where you can just kind of kick back and watch and not have to worry about it. There's no grandiose plot threads. There's no overarching character designs. It's just one girl enjoying ramen as much as she possibly can. And it's kind of like, you know, you get these shows in anime so far. You get these very idiosyncratic, very niche-driven or sometimes food related shows to where they just say, yeah, did you not realize how complex and how detailed and how much there was to this? You just thought it was noodles and soup, but no, it is so much more. It is a cultural identifier. Let's raise the banner and just shout, cheer, holler, and shout and scream from the top of Mount Fuji. That's what this show is. I mean, they make them a lot, don't they? I mean, I can't think the other particular one off the top of my head because they're so ubiquitous. I'll probably forget about this one in a couple of seasons when you get right down to it. But they're fun. But they're fun to watch while I'm doing it.
Right. I mean, this one is based on the manga series, right? So it has that, and knowing that, I'm not the way the individual episodes are written. There's 2 to 3 episodes or stories per episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wonder if this might have been better off as a short.
Kind of like with Daigashi Kashi this season.
Right, something like that. Half length or 10 minutes. But it is what it is. It is enjoyable. Cute girls doing cute things. In this case, not so cute. Slurping up ramen like professional, eaters. Especially the titular character, Miss Koizumi, which she is a pro. She's just gobbling it up, and such as like that.
Her only love is ramen. I was thinking about it when I went to our local ramen place in downtown Cincinnati, Kaze's. Just like, well, yep. Time. Oh, don't have any hair to tie back. Darn it. Okay, just start slipping noodles then.
Yeah. So it's a light fare. It's something to kill time with, and if you don't like one of the stories, there are multiple stories within each episode, so you could skip around too. But it's fun, and people are having fun with taking screenshots and blurring out certain things.
The devil will find work for idle hands to do.
Indeed. So, and you do learn some things about ramen and ramen culture and how it's made and all the infinite varieties, although they haven't really gone into the history of how ramen came about in Japan. So I'm hoping at some point they will actually cover that. But it's a simple, fun watch. All right. So we can move on to the next title. Next title is Mitsuboshi Karas. I don't know what the English title is, but I'm sure Tyler knows. So take it away.
I don't know what Mitsuboshi means, does it? It's 3 something or other.
I think it's like the 3 stars colors or something like that. Is what this thing's going by.
Yeah. But it's done by Studio Silverlink, so at least the animation's great, right?
Yeah. Silverlink, once upon a time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, had a good feather in their cap when it came to stellar animation. And now, over the past couple of years, they've gotten really lazy. And I mean, they break character model all the time, but they have good voice talent that they can hire. The color is usually almost always really good. And it's pretty basic, but this is another one of those fun shows that you don't have to think a lot about. It's not cute girls doing cute things; it's cute girls being brats, because that's what 8-year-old children are like. They have parents that work at this market, or are involved in this market somehow, which has like 1,000 shops in it, and they have practically no direction, so of course they're going to go in and threaten to tear up the place every single episode. Like the last one, it usually has a couple stories per episode. So that's its appeal. Its appeal is to watch kids being children and how they see the world around them. No big.
So I kept seeing something about episode 2 where there's a screenshot of one of the girls with a bazooka. What was that about?
they get one of the shops is a toy shop, obviously, so they grab a toy bazooka, and they fire it on one of the security people that works there that they're always harassing. And yeah, that's what happens. And they fire him. No, he steals it from him, and then he fires it at them, and it just kind of goes just like you expect one of those things to. And the one blonde girl, she catches it. That's all there is to it. There was no explosions.
Okay. I think you might have dropped out there for a second. Hopefully the Hangout actually didn't. But
I think I got him loud and clear.
okay.
Personally.
Well, any reason why have they explained why the girls are red, blue, and yellow, just like they would be like in a Sentai team?
The reason that they go around and do all that they do is because they're doing it for justice. You know, as if they're pretending to be a Super Sentai team in themselves. It's just really a way to differentiate who the three of them are, because their personalities largely are almost the same with just a little bit of variation between them. The blonde is usually obsessed with saying words that she might not or should not say in any given situation, and she'll always kind of like interject a variation on that theme. The one girl that's always playing with her DS, she has a tendency to be just oblivious until it comes up, and then she's like, "Oh, okay," and then she'll just go back to playing her video game again. And Yui, the more or less the normal girl, the team leader, is just even more outgoing than the other two combined. So it just, it just breaks them down in the tropes. Again,
Okay.
it's not a show that you think about or overthink. It's just a show that you just watch them be little brats, and that's it.
So, who would you recommend the series to?
Just about anybody, when you get right down to it. If you just want to watch something be kind of kooky and a weird little comedy, it would be pretty cool.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for that. Let's see. We will move on to our next title after which is Yuru Camp, or Laid Back Camp, I think is the English title.
Yay!
So this is an interesting show for me. Some of you know I go, hiking, backpacking, that kind of thing. And this show is yet again one of those cute girls doing cute things. And in this case, camping. Although this is mostly what we would in the U.S. would call like car camping. You go to one location and you have all this gear with you. You're not actually having to carry your gear that far. So you go to campgrounds and you set up your tent with a barbecue grill and all kinds of stuff and have a great time. So,
is the triangle a map symbol?
It's a tent.
Or is that just a triangle?
It's a tent.
It's a tent.
I don't know. I have no clue. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. At least I know. So it's based on a manga series written, I think there's like 5, maybe 6 volumes out. I have the first couple by author. It's F number 3, and you're supposed to read it as Afro. So mangaka Afro, drawing cute girls with cute things, but it's actually, there are also like slight instructional portions within. So for example, in the first episode, they go over how to actually make a fire, like a campfire. So, you need your starter, you need your kindling, you need your wood, right? And all that. Or you'll see how the variety of tents there are and what kind of expenses might be involved with that. So it's reminding me of a different show, but I've slipped my mind. But it's a fun show. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. They are constantly showing Mount Fuji and all its glory. All the campgrounds, as far as I know, are real places. So there's already threads on Twitter and social media showing, I went to the holy ground that was shown in episode 2. This is the campground, and it looks exactly like what was shown in the anime.
Well, does anime ever not be real places? That's what's cool about it.
Well, I think it's based. This one was based on the manga, so the manga author actually has knowledge of all these places, and not exactly sure how much of a camper that person, Afro is, but clearly has a lot of knowledge, and so it is. So it's like Yamano Sume or Encouragement of Climb, which was a show from 3-4 years ago about I think Tyler called it lolly hikers or lolly mountain climbers.
Lolly hikers, yes.
Yeah, and in this case, the girls are in high school, but it's a quirky cast, and obviously there's a lot of comedic moments, but interspersed with enjoying the outdoors as much as you can at a campground. And Mount Fuji is undoubtedly the most beautiful mountain in the world.
Yeah, so I'm actually also. Or were you done?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, but yeah, as I was kind of saying, I normally don't like watching shows that I don't have like if it covers a subject matter that I was kind of like I'm kind of a little against, like fundamentally or whatever, I tend to ignore it. Like I didn't watch that Nyan Pasu Moe Blob We're Stuck Out in the Country thing.
The what?
Well, I do like. What's that called, Albert?
No, Non Biori.
Yeah, there you go.
What?
No, Biori. Yeah, didn't watch that. I don't really get into a lot of heavy instrument shows. Like if they play instrumentals, fine, but like if it's a show about band, I usually ignore it. Camping is another thing that I usually don't like because I'm away from.
You're a city boy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm away from the city, and
I don't like camping, but I need to show up.
Sorry, guys. Hang on. I'll turn those off. But so
I tell her we're doing fun.
I don't usually like doing camping because, I'm out of my element and I can't really appreciate it. But the one kind of cool thing about this show is, it's all about these girls kind of doing that in their off time instead of like covering campgrounds exclusively. A lot of times you're seeing them while they're in high school talking about what they're going to do, like what they need, and like kind of exposing one of the characters who is rather new to camping to like a lot of the stuff, and that's why like a lot of the Moe Blob elements come in. But like the antics are kind of funny there, and when they do go camping, kind of like in that same vein of that show we just rather talked about recently, the Place Further Than the Universe, yeah. It does focus a lot on those visuals and just kind of like, relaxing. It is very laid back. It only shows them, like, it almost shows like a lot of the fun aspects of camping, more so than the gritty aspects of camping. So I do like it in that nature. And one of the things that I do like is kind of like what Albert was saying. A lot of times we hear a lot of banter from one of the characters kind of getting into what you would expect if you went to a certain campground. They're like, it depends on the campgrounds, but certain ones have these rules and they have these kind of regulations. And so there's a little information there for someone like me who doesn't usually care about any kind of these campgrounds, but it's rather far away from that subject matter about only being about camping and only being like to the most hardcore, campers. So it's a very light show, and I do like it.
As one of the most chill soundtracks you're ever going to hear.
Yeah, a lot of good music.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up watching this, the 3 episodes just this morning, right after I got off of work. And it was really relaxed and really nice after having a whole week of work and just going into this. I really enjoyed it. The comedy was really good. I liked it. I found myself chuckling quite often. That's just some of the most silly things they do. Even that little pine corn going, konnichiwa. Oh my gosh. I was like,
hey, he's one of the best supporting sub-characters, man.
This is another one of the shows that you can kind of recommend to anybody that is like, oh, isn't anime that weird tentacle stuff? No, not this. This is actually really cool. It's got great music to it, and man, it's got fluffy scarves and hats.
Yeah. So, I've gone camping quite often, and I've gone in different areas when I was younger. So, a lot of it brought some memories of when I did that. I mostly go camping at the beach when I was back in Oregon.
Mhm.
So, over by the Oregon coast, we would go camping quite often. But I've done it in the mountains every once in a while with some friends. So, a lot of those things, like the tent making and stuff, was pretty fun. Hanging out with friends, just relaxing. But I like how it goes to the two different aspects with group camping and solo camping, and how they're so different from each other. And I'm actually kind of shocked that she goes camping just to almost like read books and also just check out Mount Fuji. But it's really fun and really nice.
And it's winter camp at that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked how she even explained it. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The bugs and summer and
No
stuff are kind of annoying. Yeah, because I always hated mosquitoes, and you always get tons of mosquito bites and stuff when you go somewhere.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I liked how she explained the winter thing, and that makes me actually want to try going camping in winter, maybe once, just with some friends. But the only thing that kind of confuses me every once in a while when they refer to the energetic girl and everything as Nadeshko, every time you hear Nadeshko, it's this refined girl and everything, but she's like the total opposite of what you would think of an Nadeshko
She's
type
like
character.
also the center of most of the comedy of the show.
Yeah.
yeah.
And also the little bits they have at the end. After you watch the credits. How they
So
have
those are like little extras that they've added in because in the manga, it's not a 4-panel. It's an actual layout and story. But at the end of like each chapter, there'll be a 4-panel little joke, or at the end of the volume, there'll be a little bit of a 4-panel jokey version. And I think that's how they got it. But those are actually quite entertaining. So I'm just screen sharing to show you, the main cast here. Nadeshiko is the girl in the pink on the far left. Yeah, it should be on the left. Things show up reversed. And here's a panel from the manga in the upper right and how they animated it. Pretty faithful. There's been some changes, but overall it's pretty faithful.
How much?
This is the latest episode, which is episode 4, and this is the part of the extra at the end of the actual where they're all practicing. And the joke is Nadeshiko is always the camp goods. Like she's the hammock, she's the tent, she's Mount Fuji there, right in the big panel, on the second big panel, where everyone else is looking up at her.
Uh-huh. And she was fire in that other one.
Yep, she was fire, and then she was also a chair. So these are things, it's silly, and they're slightly in their chibi forms, and it's also funny. Come on, it's funny.
The only thing I have to comment as well is I'm one that tends to skip openings and endings. But once the opening of the show started, I was like, wait, what? It reminded me of a Jackson 5 song.
Bum, 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 bum. I love it. It's one of my favorites. This and Soriori have the best 1-2 OP-ED combination punches of the season, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I think the show also does one of the standard, let's put one of our songs into the show. So I think they had the ending as like a radio broadcast.
Now, this isn't really like particular to the animated stuff. I'm hoping no one gets mad at me for bringing it up, but recently I got with Albert about a product that a company actually made with like this show and kind of a collaboration. They made like a little camping stove, which like had like a lot of like a cutout in the side of the panel for the show, like with like a dot matrix form of the character with the bun. I forget her name, and just the title of the show. And it was kind of funny because they only made like about 50 of them. So like I remember hearing in a different news channel that I can't really share that it sold out in like 30 seconds. Like this stuff hit the market and people just bought this thing up apparently. Because I mean there was only 50, but like the show was that kind of prominent. But I might go link it in YouTube if you want to know the article. If not, I have it here in chat for anyone who just wants to look at it.
Yeah, there's collaboration goods and all that, and the manga has been running for quite some time. Like I said, it's got like 5 or 6 volumes out. So, but definitely would recommend it to most people. So far, you have not seen. Well, no, that's not true. But all the main cast are girls. So if you're not, if you prefer mixed gender, then this isn't the show for you. But whatever, it is definitely a lot of fun to watch every week. All right. Okay. So moving on to our next title, which is Gakuen Babysitters. I don't know what this show is about, and I think
we might want to skip over this one because it seems like I'm the one who's seen this. Maybe Nick?
Watching it.
All right.
And I've only seen like one episode. So
Yeah, I dropped it after the first episode, so I know the one person who was going to cover it's not currently here. So, but if Tyler wants to, I mean,
the whole babysitter angle is just the end. I mean, that's how the plot happens, and it's how the characters gather together. It's about broken families. It's about people trying to create a family, whereas they have none. Where you are lost, you are dispossessed, you have no one else. We could do worse than joining up with each other and kind of making a family and making our best go of it. And in a patriarchal society, which is very much family oriented, not having a family leaves you on the outs. It makes you an outsider, and none of these people are interested in doing that. They want to be part of the larger thing as a whole. So, the whole babysitting club is how that kind of joins these characters up together. They branch off and they do other things besides that, and that pads out the length I get, but ultimately it's about missing people finding themselves.
I feel like I've seen this backstory or a lot of these themes already in Shonen Maid. So I guess if you like maids, watch that one. If you like babysitting, watch this one.
Exactly. Well, that's all stories are really when you get it down to it. If you like maids, watch this one. If you like robots, watch this one. If you like Jedi, watch this other one. That's how these things work out. But yeah, it's a good show. It's a lot of fun to watch. But I mean, again, it's one of those things that we're in probably 2 or 3 seasons. So when Gakuen babysit, what? Oh, okay, I remember that one. That was okay. It's one of those shows.
Wow, it starts off pretty grim, huh? After their parents are killed in a plane crash.
Yep.
The one instant off their parents,
Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine being a parental unit in anime land, for crying out loud? Your oldest kid who's just starting high school comes home and you're like waiting nervously. You're like, okay, where are you seated in the classroom? And both having your fingers crossed like we pray. We pray that you are not near the window seat, second from the back. We hope, because if you're a main character, one of us is going to die tragically, or one of us is already dead. Who knows?
Yep.
Oh.
Don't worry, Mom. I'm in the front row, far left-hand side of the room. Oh, you're a supporting character. Thank God. We're both alive, honey.
All right. Well, we'll just go ahead and move on to our next title, which is Ryo no Oshigoto, which I watched the first episode and I hated it. But apparently, Tyler's watching it, so tell us what's going on.
What show is it?
It's where they play shogi. The shogi show.
Let me grab the.
Shogi's pretty
Ryo's work is never done.
Yeah. Lily Shogi is pretty good.
I knew it. That's why you're watching it.
No,
As
it's
cute
just
as that girl is, I just cannot take this thing seriously because I'm watching Sangatsu no Lion. March comes in like a lion right now, and Jesus, that thing is super heavy, super
hell. And
dense.
I gave up watching that one after about 12 episodes because I was like, God, I cannot relate to this kid in any way, shape, or form. It's just like he's life's rag doll. So whatever author can just go on whatever bent about how unfair and crappy life is. And he plays shogi every now and again and hangs out with these cute girls. I'm like, I understand what you're trying to go for, but man, lighten things up a little bit. Would it be great if we had a shogi show that thing was, we do have a shogi show where things are lightened up. Okay, let's see how this works out. Okay, you're a Project 9 show, aren't you? Okay, yeah, now I know what to expect. They did
9 known for.
Rokyobo or Lily Basketball. They did the one show where and I can't remember the exact name of it, but it wasn't Metro-sama, which was on last season, but it was the other people meeting on a browser game and trying to get a real life from it. That was another one of theirs, and I can't remember another one that they did, but they did these mildly skeevy kind of shows like that. This one
Oh my God, they did Rokubu.
Yeah, basketball.
Did they do that 3P band show recently or no?
Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Which one?
Intentional 3P, yes.
That one, yeah, Lily Band members. I mean, that's what they do.
Oh my God.
Design is usually pretty okay. The animation is probably what you would expect from a studio like that, and the subject matter is it's almost there, but it's funny. That's about all I really need to know. And it takes itself moderately seriously to be able to pass the time. That's it. That's all it is.
So it's just a time filler or time killer.
A cute time filler, but a time filler nonetheless.
Yeah, you kind of.
It's kind of got this edge to it because this little 9-year-old girl, she comes from Hokkaido all the way down to I think Tokyo. No, not Tokyo, Osaka. And because she wants to study under this one teenage boy who's an unparalleled master at shogi. Because of course he is. It's easy to write that in the script, but. Yeah, because it's anime. And she gets all the way down there, and then she apparently runs away from home to do this because she knew that her strict parents who run an inn up there would never let her do this. She's going to marry somebody who's going to take over the inn, and that's her station in life. So there's this interesting little bent to it, to where her mother and father come down and say, okay, fine, we'll watch her play this shogi to see how good she really is. If this master of the craft or these two masters of the craft says she's pretty good, we'll take this seriously enough. But she has to win every single match in this upcoming meet or it's off. That's what her mother says. Her father's kind of like, shh, honey, I got this. Yeah, that's what the wife says to the husband. The mother says to the father and all that. And I kind of got this thing like, I kind of get what they're saying here. As a woman to be taken seriously, you have to work 3 times as hard. You can't lose to be taken seriously. And mom kind of knows that because it seems like she has all the business sense and that, her husband, who probably inherited the inn from his parents, has no single clue what he's doing. He's a well-meaning fuddy-duddy and all that.
Well, no, he married into the family, so it was always in her family.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, so it's got kind of that angle going on to it. But I was kind of impressed with that a little bit, going, I kind of see what you're doing there, anime. You're trying to be a little bit social justice there, ain't you? A woman has to work 3 times as hard just to be taken seriously as a guy does. A guy can just show up, and hey. So it kind of has that to it, to where and she came within, one match of winning, and of course she wins against her quote unquote love rival, because anime, and they say okay, fine, and then the twist on that episode was like, so how much do you make as a shogi master? And he whispers it to her. She's like, okay, fine, we're going to arrange a marriage between you and our 9-year-old daughter. Oh God. Anime.
Yeah, because the girl really wants to play, and her mother is really adamant that she has to get far in life, and she's just not sure how possible that's going to be. So she totally does. She totally wants to pull her daughter out of this against her daughter's wishes, and the father seemingly wishes to respect his daughter's wishes, but the wife wears the pants in the relationship, and that's made adamantly clear. And So, I mean, I know the episode you're talking about. It does have that like intrigue to it because of the way it kind of depicts people. But I do at least want to mention before I dive into that this show does typically show a lot of a younger, like 9-year-old demographic, because the main protagonist of the show is like the youngest holder of a title. Like he is the youngest person to ever achieve where he's gotten thus far, which apparently has inspired all the little fourth graders all over the world that this guy's amazing. So
That's all it takes.
We do see this one in particular who this show's obviously gonna to kind of show around, but she also has like a little group of friends who will also occasionally come over and like fangasm over the shogi master guy.
Mm-hmm.
And like it is funny. I do like its humor. I like the angle it typically spins, because like I couldn't get into the Ryan show because of the animation and like the angle that it kind of spun with. I don't anyway. So like
it's too heavy and it's too shafty.
So the kind of funny thing is I never got big into playing chess, but I played it in high school, so I'm like vaguely familiar with a lot of this. And we also have been exposed to a lot of shows that cover a similar subject matter of Go. Like, you know, a lot of the systems at play here also apply to that. So you've seen anime like this around. And I did like, you know, just kind of like what Tyler was saying. Like, if you can look a little bit past the little lolly aspect of the show, there's a humor here. Like, it is enjoyable, and I am watching it, and it does make me want to play shogi a little bit, probably because of my chess backing. But we're gonna go winter camping and play shogi, Tank. That's happening.
There you go. Go winter camping in Antarctica.
Antarctica, Jesus! I think we just raised the bar even more. But
why not?
But yeah, like
I mean, Project Number
where this show is going, because we kind of have this important hinge right now, where the mother just said, like, if our daughter fails because of you, you are like a little bit beyond what Tyler said. He kind of neglected to mention this, but that's fine. Like, I'm gonna go and do that level of spoiler right now. It kind of made matters worse because she literally says, like, if our daughter can't become successful, you will marry into the family. And I forget, like, if it hinged on his success as well, because I didn't know if as soon as he married, he had, I think the condition was he literally legitimately has to quit and, like, leave shogi and come work in the hotel industry. Like, that is part of the package. Because a little bit later, he was also like saying, "Can I still play shogi if I do that?" And like a lot of his elders were like, "Oh, well, people live out further than that. It's doable." But like the moment her daughter fails, he also becomes like he can't maintain his professional life. He has to literally get absorbed into the family. Like that is the stake.
Yes.
So it kind of like it diverts enough away. It's a lot like that Tenchi 3P show that just kind of came. I don't know if Tenchi was part of the title, just came to me. Where while that is an aspect of the show, and they kind of do a tinge of that fan service aspect, but it grossly is a lot about another subject matter, and they do weave an interesting story otherwise. So I'd say, like, if you did watch that show and liked it, you know, you could give this show a shot.
I've never failed to have been entertained by this studio. I know a lot of people dump on it because of its outward appearances and different stuff like that. But like I said, I genuinely enjoy what they do. They're simple stories. They don't have to bend over backwards to appease anything and all that, and they just do it. They just tell the kind of stories they want to tell.
Yeah, they're not like over the top with it. Like there is just a scene or two here and there that comes close, but then they don't keep bringing that up. It's normally like, we did it that one time and we'll chill with it for a while.
Yeah, well, yeah, it gets a bit skeevy at times, is what you mean. I mean, I've raised kids. I don't care. It's nothing interesting.
Because that's like one of the aspects that's kind of negative about the like otaku fandom is like, you know, the potentially high like lolicon-esque fan base that it develops.
Gosh, it's an endemic problem that's even happening here in America, because last year, I mean, Stranger Things 2 came out and they immediately started hitting on a 13-year-old girl, 14-year-old girl hitting on it too. It's it's a problem. And you know what? You can probably say that shows like this probably don't help because people take it the wrong way. But you know, that's up to people like me to say, no, stop it, quit that, just entertain and then go away.
Yeah, like I don't feel like too weirded out by it, but because like because I don't want to say it becomes like an element of the show, like that's like the show wouldn't function if it didn't have it, because it's not like, I think it's kind of there for like what I was saying with like Kill la Kill, right? It's supposed to be that value where, oh my god, these guys did what, and like get their name out there, and then people might look into it and then go, hey, this is actually a pretty cool series.
It's the awkwardness of closeness in the Japanese society, I think, is what they're doing in a situation like that, and about how, you know, children don't have that defenses and that guard that you build up in life to hold strangers at a remove or something like that. So it's a sense of trust. It's a sense of how that's always having a balance, and how you kind of lose that childlike naivete and system of trust when you grow up. So there's probably some elements of that in it, but
yeah. Just like, for example, not that I want to go on and on about this for forever, but just to depict this innocence. When the girl first like comes like to the household, they end up playing like shogi like all that night or all the next night or something. So like when the parents eventually come down, the girl's all like not realizing what she's going on because she's in 4th grade. She's all, oh, he had the stamina, he went all night, and like, you know, wiggling back and forth, and like the parents are like flipping the crap out. There's even like a cook in the background who pauses and look up, and he's like, she's talking about shogi, guys, chill. like we played shogi.
Yep, we've seen this lame dumbass joke before about 5 or 600,000 different times. You know, they
yeah,
do
a lot
it
of ecchi shows do it. It just becomes a little bit, and like it becomes a little bit of a like a subject matter I feel that we have to kind of tiptoe around just because.
You know, the thing that I like the most about this show, which I think makes it really funny, is her like yandere vibe that she gives off every once in a while.
when they do that cute little thing where she's like kind of mildly off camera, kind of doing shoot, 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 that little punching move and things like that, which is like every single little like younger girl status against the older girl that's horning in her territory.
Yeah, like the only other odd element at play here is like that weird thing that she does whenever she's like predicting future moves and looking ahead. Like when she like kind of does that here, and just kind of like getting too absorbed into the game. Like that's a thing, but it's not horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we got your enthusiasm for the show has come through. So,
honestly, I think if you like Saki, which is that one about Mahjong, I think you can also probably get into something like this.
Only if they demonstrate superpowers while they're playing.
Huh.
And no underwear.
Because this makes me think of that show quite often.
There you go.
Yeah, but at least the Saki, which I haven't seen, but from what I understand, is, you know, they're high school students, right? And they're all competing against other high school students. It's not like, you know, the super protege at 80-year-old shows up to challenge the super protege, or actually to become the disciple of the super protege who's in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're obviously really different from each other, but like I don't know why. I just get this big vibe that if you like Saki, you might like this. But
Fair enough.
But unlike the other shows so far, this one doesn't try to teach you anything. It doesn't explain certain moves or why pieces move certain ways so far.
It kind of thinks you understand it. And they show up enough close-ups of it to where I'm like, I'm probably losing off on something thematic here. But I always guess it's probably usually very simple. So, you know, it's just doubling up on information you already see.
Well, see, like the thing with me is I actually know I'm not good at shogi or anything, but like I do know how the pieces move, I just have trouble recognizing pieces because, like, when it comes to chess, like everything has an iconic look. Like they're molded. Like you don't have like just writing on the same looking piece. So like I have difficulty discerning what piece is what because I never like if I knew how the board was set up and I played the match, I could probably keep track of it. Like I just don't have a firm like link from written character to what piece it is. But I do know how when the board is in its initial state, how they all move. So and I know a lot of the rules. Like I know the rules. I could play a game. I'm just probably not that good. Like I'm like your beginner of the beginner. It's like my Go skill level. Like I can play, but I'll probably lose to anyone who's played more than 5 games.
Okay, well, thanks for all of that. We are unfortunately out of time for this hangout. There's a lot more titles that people would like to discuss, so we'll make an announcement in our community on Google+, the Anime Talk community, and to join in on the conversation for this season. So probably next time Tank will be hosting again. And so we usually have about 1 or 2 shows on the beginning of the season after about 3 episodes have dropped to preview. And then at the end of the season, after everything is done, we usually have 1 or 2 hangouts to review what was the good shows. So glad that everyone could make it today. Tyler, it was good to see you. It's been a while.
Everyone else, yes.
Yep. So everyone, thank you all for watching, and keep watching anime, as they say.